Welcome to the channel. I had a very interesting discussion with someone the other day about pierced primers. He went on at length about his firing pin and that his firing pin must be too long and that was giving him pierced primers. I've only ever had a pierced primer the once. And I remember it distinctly because it involved my little Armalon here. This is a 303 conversion to 223. It uses Ruger 14 mags. Really nice gun. Really like it. It's got a sort of very fast bolt. If you look at the firing pin on this gun, that sticks out a fair amount. This is in the position it would be if it was cocked and fired. That's a pretty far extended firing pin. And you can also see it's nice and round. I mean, it's not jagged, but this gun produced a whole primer. I'll tell you the story. This is a borescope, and it's 1 by 4 by 24 millimeter extreme tactical. But what it has the side picture has graduations in it for distance, and so you have a center hole which has a ring around for the middle, and below that it's like 300, 400, 500. By at the bottom it's like a dash for 600. Fantastic! I really loved it, as long as you're using 5.56 mil-SAP ammunition. And the producer here locally is Radway Green, but Radway Green 5.56, you know, it was never that easy to get, and it was certainly never cheap. And so I thought, well, you know, I'll come up with my own little load, and that way I'll have the best of both worlds. And I certainly had some 62 grain heads, and I used the ball powder. I don't know what it was, and this is unfortunately before I computerized my load data. And I set off. And I loaded it. I think I used 5.56 brass, and I got to your target speed was about 3,000 feet per second for 5.56. I seem to remember. You can look that up. I'm not sure, but I think it was about 3,000. I think I got about 2.9. I got 2.9 out of my case, and I was already got a flat created primer. And I thought, ooh, I can get the extra 100. This is, I hasten to add, 15 years ago when I just started shooting. I didn't get there. I got a pierced primer, and it's literally a hole in the rear of the primer where your firing pin punched out a little disc. And, well, that was it. I don't really remember a lot of gas coming back at me, but I do remember seeing the pierced primer. And after that, the gun would basically light strike. So it wouldn't fully ignite loads, and it turned out to be that if I take my bolt here, I'll have to recock it. And we'll have a look how you can untwist the front here. And there was a little tiny metal flake just in there. And it was the corresponding piece of metal that I had effectively punched out of the primer. And it had somehow gotten all the way back into, well, the action here, into the bolt, and was stopping the firing pin from going forward all the way. Now I'll show you that again. That's it fully expanded. That's a tight hole. I don't think it got past that. So it either, and I find that an insane suggestion, it either pushed the firing pin all the way back. We're talking thousands of PSI. I don't think it's that, actually. I think it's more likely that the firing pin was not all the way down when the powder ignited, and then there was just enough clearance between the firing pin and the firing pin hole, and it just kind of threw it there. So basically, when we're talking about a pierced primer, pierced is really the wrong word. We're not piercing it, we're punching it, we're hole punching it, we're cutting a disc out of it. And in my case, that disc made its way back into the bolt. So if you ever get a pierced primer, take your bolt apart and hunt for that little disc of brass, that little disc of primer cup, because chances are it's in here. Now, why did I get it? I got a pierced primer because I had too much pressure. Obviously, I pushed the load too far. I had already gotten flattered and created primers. I didn't get ejector marks, incidentally. I don't know why. I would have expected that before a pierced primer, but I wasn't there. Well, I don't remember it, honestly. Coming back to the discussion I've had, I think there are a million ways, well, there are dozens of ways you can get too much pressure. He could have gotten accidentally a heavier bullet, so I'd measure the bullet. Maybe he used pistol primers instead of rifle primers. He may have not trimmed his brass. Maybe his brass was too long. If brass is too long, it basically, the throat will pinch it and push it into the bullet, and that'll give you a pressure spike. It might even have been something like that. It was a really hot day. On a hot day, the pressure will increase. He could have used the can. When I used the can on my 260 load, I had to hammer the bolt open effectively. The pressure spike was extreme. It could have obviously used too much powder. Maybe he was using a Magnum primer, I don't know. The fundamental point is that if you have a reliable gun that is suddenly piercing primers, then I wouldn't necessarily blame the gun. I would blame the load. And the easy test there is just to buy some manufactured ammunition and shoot that and see whether you get a pierced primer. Even this guy sticks out like mad, you know, and that's fine. But I guess if it stuck out further or weren't rounded off, I don't know. I can't believe that a gun manufacturer would let a gun like that out onto the market. But, you know, don't know. Maybe he fiddled with something he shouldn't have or started filing metal components down. Maybe he changed his barrel and, you know, it's now a bit tighter. Let's wrap this up. I wouldn't blame the gun as my first step, is what I would say. Buy some factory ammunition, try it out. If you're not getting pierced primer, it's your load. Anyway, I hope this was interesting, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.